know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Well, hello and welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And welcome to the show. I do appreciate your time and efforts for tuning in to me just carrying on and on and on about WoW on a week-to-week basis, or at least to join in with me in my frustrations and sometimes the praise here and there with this program. And we've got probably a stellar example of that, where we have the praise and the criticism all kind of wrapped up into one episode, and that is the one that is going to be in review for today, with the main event, the Lumberjack match, the highly anticipated Lumberjack match that they had talked about. And this is the thing that's going to contain this action and make sure that we have a winner. But we will get to that. As you know, if you've listened to this, I usually tend to go through a little bit of a detour before I get onto WoW Road and start talking about their ongoings. So, for a moment, let us just take a side step off and go into the news, views, and updates. And what is going on out there? Well, there actually is quite a bit of stuff, not necessarily all big news, but you know, there's things going out there in the world of women's wrestling. I'm about to trip over my tongue. There are things going on out there in the world of women's wrestling. Jeez, make my own tongue twister. I want to begin with saying that originally I was going to do a top 10 women who've influenced the direction of wrestling. That largely came about because of a post that I came across online, I think specifically on Instagram. And it was brought up by another podcast, and I believe that was it the slides? I don't think they had them interviewed, but they were going through persons that they felt had helped change the game. And this is and give credit where it's due, this came from the Marking Out show. So I believe that's a podcast as well. You can go check them out, the Marking Out show. And they have a nice listing of persons that were really influential and helped kind of change the game in their view. I felt like, you know, that's a very good subject matter, and I wanted to be able to address that. However, I know that I'm long-winded when I do that, so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to place that to the side, and I'm going to get back into it because I want to go do a deep dive, and I'm certainly not discounting the persons that they picked, and I'm going to just read through some of the names that they have, just top to bottom. They listed Molly Holly, Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, Beth Phoenix, Mickey James, Jazz, Becky Lynch, Lita, Mercedes Moné, Trish Stratus, Charlotte Flair, Bailey, Jackie, Ivory. Those are the names that they had listed as far as I know from the post that I saw. They may have added some, they may have edited, they may have changed some around, but that was the one that was available to me at that time. And I do like the list. I agree with most of it. But as far as changing the game I felt like, well, we could do a deeper dive than that. This seems a fairly contemporary list. And so in order to be fair to the industry as a whole, I am going to attempt to do a deep dive into the women across the decades that helped shape one way or the other the path of women's wrestling. So that might be an interesting little thing to talk about, deal with. Of course, if you have your suggestions and why, feel free to leave those in the comments below or message me if you choose. One of the next things that I saw, and I, of course, had to address because I questioned this a couple of times, was, well, what is J-Rod going to do when she appears on American Gladiators? As we know, she will be one of the gladiators of said event. And when is that? It's supposed to air on Hulu, but I do believe it's going to come up this fall, past September. Now, what the actual air date is, I do not have that in front of me, and I wish I had written that down. Sorry. But we know that this is on the horizon. And one of the big questions was, because they have several wrestlers who are participating, will they appear as their wrestling persona? And I am going to say in this particular point that we may be getting that from J-Rod. I have not had it confirmed. I did leave a question open for her. I mean, it's there for the public. I was asking whether it was officially confirmed. Can we say that it is official now? That you will be appearing on American Gladiators as J-Rod. The reason being is that she posted a picture of herself. She looks amazing. In her, what we assume to be her American Gladiator outfit. And on that outfit, she has her name, J-Rod. So, with that being the case, I think we can maybe assume that she will be on that show as her wrestling persona, which, I mean, honestly, it makes sense. J-Rod has long presented herself as the ultimate athlete. I wouldn't want to change a thing, quite honestly. I wouldn't want to change anything about her. She looks like a star. She looks like an athlete. Her whole persona has been, that she's, as she says, the ultimate athlete. It is amazing to me that she has the J-Rod name on there. But, as I am reading this right now, I'm going to make a change. I'm sorry. Have to correct myself here, because I didn't go and I didn't see that she had responded. And as I am talking to you right now, I just looked at the response. So I'm going to read what I wrote, and then you can, and her brief answer. Is it official that you get to use your name for American Gladiators? Her response was, it's not. Even though we've got J-Rod on the outfit. So we can still have to sit back, and we got to wait and see if she's going to turn around and do that. So you just got a real-time response as I was sitting here doing this record. So, hey, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm looking at it, it's like 30 minutes ago she responded to us as of me doing this at this moment. So, hey, I appreciate the response. I really hope that she does keep the name, because why change it? Like I said, that's what I was going into there a second ago. She already has the gimmick, and I don't really think that there's a reason to change it. I would assume, and this is all this is, let me just go ahead and say it now, I would assume that she may go under the title Liberty. Maybe. And the only reason I say that is because the first thing that you got posted up there is Liberty's loudest roar. But cannot go off of that alone. We will wait and see how this plays out as time goes on. But again, J-Rod is plastered right on her top. So maybe it's a combination of the both. I don't know. Maybe it's Liberty, a.k.a. J-Rod. I don't know. I am hoping for the latter. I'm hoping that she's going to remain J-Rod, but, I'm sure she will do fine either way. I am not overly happy with the Nikki Nashville thing, but I do believe that if she's given time and if she continues to do what she's done in the matches that I have seen, she might be able to actually get that thing over. So, here we go. American Gladiators around the corner. J-Rod apparently is not going to be the name. News to me as I am talking. There are rumors that have been circulating to the WWE Women's World Champion Naomi as to why she was not on television recently and that she, was pregnant. I am not prepared to sit here and say that the rumors are false, even though I've seen someone post like, she's not pregnant. Not that I discount that person or their site, but I need to see that kind of confirmed elsewhere before I go jumping in that. So again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I only bring it up because I had mentioned in previous podcasts, I think this is some of the best work that Naomi has been doing. And it's not necessarily even her in-ring stuff, even though she's been good there too. But she has committed to being this crazy person that has been taking place in the ring. And she has really upped her game. And I don't think that the WWE or anybody else could be asking for anything better out of her at this particular point. She's killing it. If she happens to be pregnant, then I would jump in line along with all the rest of the wrestling community and wish her congratulations. If she's not, then I expect to see some more good stuff out of her going forward. But she's also listed as getting ready to address the status of the Women's Championship at the upcoming Raw as of this recording. So, you might be listening to this after the fact, but as me, I'm not aware of what's going on. I can't tell the future, so we will see if she's going to be able to continue on and if she's going to be able to continue with this magnificent streak that she's been doing lately. She's only gotten better. She's a prime example of sometimes you got to change your environment, you got to change it up, you got to evolve, and that you cannot come out of the gate a polished diamond. Sometimes it's going to take a little pressure. Sometimes it's going to take some time to get to where you're going. And it seems like she has turned the curve and she's getting to where she's going. We've seen the Glow. We've seen her go to being Trinity, which is like a hybrid of the Glow. And a little bit of indie wrestling tossed in there. We've seen her come back. And we've seen this. Caution. Naomi. I certainly hope, selfishly, I hope that she is able to continue wrestling. But there are bigger things than that from time to time. And, we have to respect those life choices. We had also talked about the interview that the WOW panel had at San Diego Comic-Con and by proxy of that, Variety. And I know I had mentioned when talking about them on Variety in the previous podcast, I said I really didn't understand what audience they were trying to hit because Variety does not seem to be, and it never came across to me as a product that was there to engage the wrestling fan. It's more a product for TV, movies, so on and so forth. In some cases, I would say it could go so far as to be a trade magazine. Because, yes, fans can read it. Yes, fans would go to the site. But they are also looking to get the same kind of insider information that when a wrestling fan goes to Cultaholic or WrestleSpective or listen to Solomon Sound Off or JD from New York or JD from NY and other various podcast/website platforms that deal with wrestling specific. It's not any different than that, where the fan base goes to those things to get the inside track. Well, when you're a TV and movie fan, you tend to lend yourself towards variety and Entertainment Tonight, Extra, so on and so forth. Although variety would be a little step further away from the televised aspect of that. So in any case, when I brought that up before, I also mentioned that one of the problems is that those interviews are, I can't say buried, but they're not prominently featured to where it makes some sort of major difference to the audience. Which only makes me feel like this is not an interview that's designed for the WOW audience. I don't know who it's for. Because in order for you to get this, you would have to seek this out. As stated before, you have to go and find this. And now I'm going to tell you where. So if you want to choose to do it, you can. But it is not on the Variety main YouTube channel. It is on Variety's secondary YouTube channel titled Variety Events. Now, Variety Events, I'm assuming they probably have not had this around very long. It doesn't seem to have the same cachet as the primary Variety channel. And I want to say that it may be about a month or so old as of me recording this right now. This is everything that I said in the previous podcast. It's like I used the example of the match that I didn't think was any good. It wasn't that I didn't post it. I just posted it someplace that I would not have normally posted it. And in order for you to find that particular match, you'd have to know where I posted and you'd have to know what you're looking for. Well, with this, you'd have to know where they posted. You might not need to know what you're looking for because they have it up there. But it's still very light on the business of their business. It's more or less a rinse and repeat of what they did last year, and last year it was worse because the interview that they had was thrown on the Daily Motion. I really didn't know that people still went to Daily Motion, but it's there from the 2024 interview. Now 2025 featuring Santana, Garrett, featuring the Carlson twins, featuring Paula Mayfield, and of course Jeannie Buss and David McClain. Those persons are there, and it's fine as far as presentation. But quite honestly, and I won't even put this entirely in their lap, I'll put part of this on the idea that it is on a secondary channel. Because there's not many things on that channel that does have high views. I mean, you're talking about some views as low as 23, and they'll be like weeks ago. And I'm pretty sure that some of them are things that people would want to know. But there's also some of those interviews that are there that like you really have to be a television fan to want to see this. Outside of that, you've got 38,000 views for Grande and Navarro talking about Wicked. Now, they probably found that interview, their fans, just based on their name. You got one that's about 17,000 views within 4 days, and that's the cast of the upcoming Interview with a Vampire. Outside of that, everybody there is kind of floating around in the same sphere. Love on the Spectrum, Ghost, somebody talking about Pulp Fiction at 30 years after the fact, and it's not even somebody that was part of the cast. So you got a couple of those happening there. Solar Opposites, talking about their 6th season. Star Trek, Starfleet Academy. You know, there's a bunch of those things, and amongst that is WOW. And the title of it, The Women of Wrestling Discuss Representation of the Sport, is like the same thing that they've always talked about. for whatever reasons, they just cannot get into discussing wrestling for their wrestling fan base. So when you look at the video, let's talk about the positives here. First off, everybody looks great. They do. I would tend to think that they may need to do one of these panels where it's just them, the stars of it, not necessarily McLean and Bus. But I know that'll never happen. Now, the only reason I say that is not because David McLean or Jeannie Buss did anything wrong here. They actually did not. Nor do I think that David McLean sucked the life out of the interview like I've accused him of doing on occasion. I don't believe that to be the case here. But in order for these four to gain the spotlight that they probably needed, they would have needed to be there by themselves. But there is a downside to that, because I honestly, and I cannot prove this, but I honestly don't believe that Variety would have had any interest in interviewing them whatsoever had Jeannie Buss not been there. Like, Jeannie Buss seems to have become the means to an end as it relates to getting interview time with platforms like this. So back to the positives. They all came out in their wild gear. They looked the part. They looked like the stars that they're purported to be. Not really big on having heel Paola Mayfield in there with three other baby faces, but we can move on from that and let that slide. They were much better, seemingly, at answering the questions, opposed to what I got last year. And not to point the finger at this young lady, but again, I always reference that stumped question that Genesis hit. What match inspired you? And she just couldn't do it. We didn't have a moment like this. If it did exist, it clearly was edited out. But I will say, once we get past the good of that, the good of them being able to speak for themselves, the good of their presence on screen, the good of them being able to justifiably talk about and discuss the topics that were presented to them without stumbling or stammering or, I don't know. Their being able to do that is a plus, and it should be applauded. And Lindsay probably deserves a bigger thumbs up than anybody else on the panel in this particular interview, because there is a point in there where the interviewer starts going off track, and I was going to get to that in a moment. She starts going off track and starts asking Jeannie Buss about these other things. And Lindsay kind of, not obnoxiously, not mean or anything like that, she steps into that. It's like, hey, we're here to talk about Wild Women of Wrestling and so on and so forth. And good on her for doing that. Good on her for trying to keep that interview on track and on topic of talking about them. Because whether I agree with it or not, whether I agree with the idea that they should be on Variety or some of these other platforms where I think that they're not getting necessarily what they need, whether I agree with the decision to do that, they're there, they were participating in it, and as such, keep it on topic to what this is. It is supposed to be about their wrestling program, and she made sure to step in and say something about it. Good on her for doing that. Now you get to the downslide of it. That's a little bit out of sequence because it happens down the line. But when you look at the entirety of this thing, it's like 18 and a half minutes long. Of that 18 and a half minutes long, I am going to guess 5 to 6 minutes of it might be WoW related. After that, it's like, so Jeannie Buss, you were here last time and you got this thing going on with the Lakers and running time. We just talked about that and it's based on your life and so on and so forth. And do y'all plan on doing this, that, and the other? That was when it hit me. It's like they probably wouldn't even have this conversation right now if Jeannie Buss weren't there. The interviewer sounded like she did a fine job. She wasn't on camera. You only heard her talking off screen. She sounded like she did a fine job, but she did not sound like she was overly versed in pro wrestling. And if she was, probably had to deal with, well, this is the things that the fans that watch or read Variety or watch Variety's videos would want to know. What about you at running time? What about, your things going on with the Lakers? How are you doing with these other side projects? She clearly goes into those things because they were a bigger deal. And that was when Lindsay kind of stepped in. But with all of that going on, they start talking about side projects and, if you thought about doing a movie, like it could be just like Community, 5 seasons and a movie. And then, of course, the ladies jump on that like, yeah, that'd be great. So, I'd like to do a horror movie. I'd like to do a Christmas Hallmark movie. I'd like to do a comedy. There's nothing wrong with those things. But what that question clearly showed me is that the interviewer does not view WOW as a wrestling promotion. They just view this as a TV show, and this is just part of the act. Because we can make a WOW movie out of this. Okay, I mean, sure, you can make a movie out of most anything. And if they do, then great. Because I'm sure Jeannie Buss has the funds to make a movie if she wants to. They even brought up a cartoon or animation, however they phrased it. They brought that up. Same rules apply. If that is something that Jeannie Buss wants to do, it's not that difficult to accomplish. If you've got a reasonable amount of money, and I'm not even talking about being a multi-millionaire or billionaire as she probably is at this point. I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying if you have a reasonable amount of money, you could probably accomplish those things right now. There is a AI company today that is advertising for, hey, you want to get your animations off the ground? Contact us. Hey, I'll make this for you. And, of course, they're trying to undercut the market. They're being cheap or cheaper than what you would have normally paid. So clearly, it can be done. If she wants to do a movie, it can be done. There are many indie wrestling stars, or I should say independent directors and producers that have made wrestling-based scripts / movies for years. Now, whether it accomplishes what they wanted to accomplish, that's open to debate, and that's left open to your personal interpretation, and or whether you got the chance to see their financials and did they recoup the money that they put into this. Now, Jeannie Buss could just decide that, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million and just make you a movie. Go ahead. And I don't care whether I get the money back. She could do that. Maybe it'll help. Maybe it wouldn't. But it probably, in their case, would only solidify dragging them further away from being related to the wrestling industry. Like Lindsay at some point there mentions that they were trained by Alpha the Wild Samoan. It would not shock me if the interviewer was sitting back there like, yeah, and not having a goddamn clue who she was talking about. So all of those things can happen. Have a animation, have a movie. They can do both. I don't know if it helps their show overall. But the overarching theme here was to get across that, hey, we're coming back again for another season. WOW has grown, I guess. I am only going to go off of what they're saying. I cannot say that they have not grown. I don't know that. I am not involved with their internals. I personally do not see the growth. But that doesn't mean that it ain't there, and I can fully admit that. But when I say that I personally don't see the growth, well, I mean, they've had a location from the start. They've had TV from the start. It's been syndicated from the start. They haven't really jumped into anything new. They haven't had any pay-per-view. They haven't sold a big merchandise. They haven't hit a pocket where they're pop culture references or making appearances on other television shows because they're so famous and popular, or the show hasn't extended its time from an hour to 2 out of popular demand. You know, the things that I would know to look at and justify that, hey, this thing has grown, I haven't seen any of that. Again, could it have had something else that they talk about in their growth? Sure. I'm just going off of what I can talk about from the outside looking at. So, I mean, there was the theme of that growth, season 4, and that they are moving their location of where they're producing the show. And that is, David McClain brings up, well, it was 40 years ago that we had Glow, and it was in Las Vegas. And now, 40 years later, we're going back, and we're going to have a Vegas residency at Fremont Street. We're setting up a ring right there in the middle, and people will be able to walk up and see WOW, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If there's any one thing that I can say for Dave McClain, he is very good at selling his product, and he's good at smoke and mirrors. He's very good at it. Because all of that sounds wonderful. It does. And I'm sure for the talent that will be involved, it will be wonderful. But it also, like I said, doesn't make me feel like there's some level of growth there. And why is that? Well, because of these things. One, I don't think, and let me stress this part again, you know, I'd have to do this when I don't have the proof right in front of my face. This I cannot prove. But from everything from me visiting Vegas to me looking at the website to me talking to other people that stayed around there and looking through what a Vegas residency generally contains. The term residency there, and as he presented it, I don't think he wouldn't be wrong, but it's not a Vegas residency in the traditional sense. The traditional sense being like for him, I know he mentioned like Tom Jones and Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. You know, he went back a couple of years. I will just say Usher. Let's just use him. That's largely when there's a contract that this person is going to perform here and only here for this designated amount of time, which means that they're likely getting paid by that venue to keep them there. The Fremont Street Festival is basically an open environment situation. And yeah, there could have been an agreement that like, yeah, we'll only perform here for you guys. I mean, on their own website, it's like, hey, partner with us. So I can't imagine it'd be overly difficult. They have local bands and they have all the wonderful things that go on there, and he brought that up like they got over 4,000 LED lights, and we'll be right there in the middle of it. And like I said, he paints a very nice picture, and I'm sure seeing it on screen will be wonderful because it'll be a different venue. If there's any other thing that I would say that I wish they could change is the need to have to stick to this one venue for a solid year. Like, I would like it to be rotated every so often because they usually start off looking great. I felt that way with the Belascos. Like, it has a great feel, got good character to it. But after you've seen it week in and week out and week in and week out, it loses it. It loses its luster. Then they went to the TV studio. It was great to see it initially, the ramp and the lights and this, that, and the other, but after a while it begins to lose its luster. Week in and week out, nothing has changed. They go to the Vegas residency. I expect it to look magnificent with the lights and all the people and the drunks and whatever that's going to be out there, because you better believe the alcohol is going to be flowing. But my concern is that after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, will it still maintain its look, the energy of it? I'm almost at a point where I would be like, I would be happy if y'all found a small warehouse or an armory or a high school and dressed it up just to get a different look. Now, I know he would never do that because I'm sure that's not something he would ever want to do. But just to maintain a different look here and there, I would, hey, give it a shot. You can dress up a location to look nice. But anyway, back to the residency deal. It seems like this is going to be, we're going to just plop this down in the street, and whoever happens to be here at Fremont Street during this time will be able to watch this. That will look good on camera. I do not know if it is going to aid WOW in its long term. Only because out of that group, how many of them are going to be legitimate wrestling fans who are following this and know exactly what's going on? Opposed to just people that happen to be there, like, oh, wow, look at that. It goes back to everything that I've said. Like, you're going to get a crop of people that's going to watch certain things just because it's there. First off, it's a free event. Secondly, it's women in tights at said free event. So they're probably going to get a significant group of onlookers just because. Will they translate into, well, it can't translate in the box office because no one's buying the ticket. Will it translate into higher viewership / higher ratings as time goes on? Well, we have to look and see, but I would say that the outcome of that is probably not very likely. Not that they can't, but they do not try to get the wrestling fan there. They just don't. Maybe they'll change my mind. But if you go to that particular video, you can go to about 9 minutes and 50 seconds into it, and you can hear him mention everything that his brief blurb about we're going to be in the Vegas residency at Fremont Street. Well, he just said Fremont Street. I'm not going to say that he actively advertised the festival itself or the experience. It's called Fremont Street Experience. So we will see. And I am nearly positive that all the stuff that was shot a year, well, was it a year? A couple of months back, when they did show up at Vegas, I'm sure that footage is about to rear its ugly head and pop itself on the television. So we will see how this goes. And before we get out of this, I have something I would like to say just in general to some WOW participants out there. Nothing bad. To Penelope Pink and Tiki Chamorro. It is my understanding, based on posts and things that popped up in Reddit and on Instagram, that there have been 2 specific life-changing events with these young ladies, respectively. They're not life-changing events together. They're life-changing events for them both individually. But one, I am not expecting to see Tiki Chamorro pop back into WOW anytime soon. It looks like she is with child. So congratulations to her and her husband. And judging by the picture that was posted, she's about due. if she isn't ready to deliver the goods right now, I mean, she's got to be right around the corner from it. So that's one big plus. The other being, it seems that Miss Penelope Pink has a Mr. Penelope Pink. So congratulations to her as well. It appears that she is now a married woman. So you guys that was out there tuning in for the benefit of hoping one day you can steal her away or show her some better life, too late. Sorry, you can't do it. But no, seriously, congratulations to them both on their life-changing events. It is a wonderful thing. And I will just add on this bit of personal information, well, not personal, personal advice to you both, since you are both married or around the corner from being married. If I am off track on my timeline, don't go to sleep angry. That's probably some of the best advice I could give between couples and married couples. Do not go to sleep angry. Whatever it is that you got going on, try to resolve it before you lay your head down, because you don't want it to fester in your head overnight. And that being said, a final congratulations, and we are now going to go to the break with our little interlude and hopefully another Talking to Talk segment. And when we get out of that, then we go into the review. Stay tuned, everybody.
Although I came out victorious, obviously the extra involvement, I mean, why do I keep doing this? Honestly, like, why do I keep putting myself in this position? These girls, like Classmaster with Samantha Smart, Paola with Abilene Maverick, like, does anybody fight fair these days? You know, I don't know what the future holds, but one thing I do know is that this company deserves a fighting champion. This company deserves someone who will compete with honor and respect for not only themselves, but for everybody else. So I don't know what's next, but I'm sure we're gonna find out real soon.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all. Seneca Sunshine. On Saturday, August 2nd, I have some exciting news. I, Blair Onyx, I make my Wrestle League debut. And look, I love the sun too. But I have to send you a message, and I have to send you a message from Source. Because if there's one thing that's more important than sunshine, and that is the message from Source. So, on Saturday, Seneca, I get to save you. Let me save you.
And we are back. This episode of WOW is episode 348. Season 3, episode 48. It is titled Lumberjacks and Comebacks. The air date, August the 9th. The chronological number 152. So you already know that we are coming up on the end of their season, because when it comes back around again, I'm sure they will start at 400 and then 401 and then march up from there. But as this count goes, we've got about 4 episodes left, something like that. The show opens with a recap of Miami's Sweet Heat and HollySwag and Penelope Pink feud. This shows the non-finish of the hardcore match that supposedly set up the Lumberjack match for the main event, because it was presented as, well, we have no alternative but to do this, because how else are we going to maintain these people and keep them in check, right? You probably already know what my feelings were and are about that, because I still maintain I don't see what the point of the Lumberjack was. The Lumberjack match. On paper, it makes some kind of sense. On paper. Hey, they've gotten away, they've done this, but a lot of that is just them running off and fighting every which way. No one really tried to escape, which again is a large portion of the Lumberjack match. It's part of the psychology of the match. I gotta get out of here. I'm trying to get out. No, they won't let me. I take it, I get thrown out over the top and I try to run and they pick me up and toss me back in, those things. But no one has run. I think I mentioned it before. In fact, the heels have run towards them. It's not like they had a cowardly act on either side of the fence. All parties seem to be perfectly fine with fighting each other. But for whatever reason, I guess the backstage and the ramp have a magnet attached to them and they just can't stay away from it. But we will get towards all of those things as the show rolls on. So the next segment of the show is Sylvia Sanchez, my dearest Sylvia Sanchez, taking on Nikki Nashville, or AKA J-Rod. I would prefer J-Rod, but hey, as I said, she may get the Nikki Nashville thing over. Who knows? Although I am questioning whether she will be able to even show back up in a while. Because if I were a betting man, if there were any sort of conflict of interest of taping schedules and she had to pick between one or the other, I'm going to probably go with her picking American Gladiators opposed to WOW. I mean, keep in mind, of course, we all know this was shot some time ago. This was shot in September. So them sitting on the footage of her for months and months and months and months and months and months and months, it may not reflect until, like I said, the next 4 or 5 episodes, once they start bringing in the new stuff and we see whether they mention or bring up Nashville at all or any of the other talents that they have. That'll be the test, whether or not her decision was to come back and be a wrestler on their program or not. But in any case, we've got Nikki Nashville, straight out of Ohio. That still tickles me. Coming out to take on Sylvia Sanchez. This match starts off with a minor comedy spot. Not a long match to begin with. Let's just begin with that. And that minor comedy spot is Nikki Nashville somewhat forcing Sanchez into a do-si-do spot, where she's just kind of like, hey, we're going to dance in the middle of the ring. I don't know why that was incorporated in there. Thank goodness Sanchez did not just miraculously like, hey, what's going on here? What's happening? Like she had no alternative and no ability to stop this. I mean, she did it for, the 2 or 3 turns that they did, but did not look amused, did not just suddenly feel like, hey, this is fun, like some other comedians that exist in the ring have done and will do. She gets out of the ring, she complains, she being Sanchez, to the commentators booth, probably specifically David McLean, because he's the authority of this thing. She tries to get back in the ring, and Nashville tries to meet her at the ropes. Sanchez cuts her off by grabbing the arm and just yanking for it. It was fine. One of the things I did notice here, regardless to how good or bad, and I'm not going to say bad, how good these ladies were doing and how well they performed, the crowd did seem worn out. And that might just be the result of these marathon tapings that they do. Just looking at them, they just did not seem overly interested. Didn't seem like they had a lot of juice left in them. Even the extras of the front row that generally clap and applaud and overact about everything, none of them seemed like they had any spark left in them. They were just kind of drained. Sanchez, I love because she makes it clear that she is a heel. There's no debating to whether she is good, bad, or indifferent. She lets you know in action, lets you know in facial expression, lets you know telling the crowd to shut up. And that's what you want. That's what you need. Not these varying shades of gray that exist pretty much amongst most of them. Or a good fair chunk. Let's not just dwindle everybody into the category of they don't know whether they're good or bad. No, some of them do. And I'm just happy to see that she is. And I largely bring that up because Fury was never really identified as babyface or heel one way or the other. Sometimes she is, sometimes she ain't. I assume that she is babyface now, but we'll get to that as time rolls on. We got another good heel spot in the middle of the match with Sanchez when she's tossed to the corner and the referee's there asking, like, hey, you okay? And then Sanchez pulls the ref in the way to block Nashville from coming and attack her. Gives her a double throat thrust. Again, how can you mistake what Sanchez is in this environment? She lets you know that she is a heel. And it is very evident that she's a heel. Nashville also gets the chance to show off power. Sanchez tries to get a side Russian leg sweep on her. She's able to block it just pretty much by holding her ground. Holding still. Making sure that she is not taking over. And then she hoists Sanchez up into a sidewalk slam. And then now she goes. We got our big baby face here who's delivering clotheslines. Knocks Sanchez down twice, blocks a clothesline from Sanchez, gives her a spin heel kick, puts her down. We get a reverse leg lariat to the back of Sanchez's head as she's trying to get up and, reassess herself. But that is not enough to keep her down. We keep moving on. It is not towards the end just yet, but when we do get towards the end, which is Nashville taken out of the corner. Nashville sends Sanchez in, charges in with a reverse elbow. Then she takes her out of the corner, walks her much like she did with Fury a week or so ago. Stalls it out, drops her with a suplex, and then 1, 2, 3. And at the 3, Sanchez gets it up, but too late. The referee didn't see it. She's done. Nashville wins. Surprisingly, somebody came into WOW with a debut and actually won. And is winning again. Good on her. This was fine. And if it were for the case of helping build Nikki Nashville, I'm good with it. And in fact, I would even go so far as to applaud it. Just because she hasn't succumbed to the WoW curse just yet. That if you knew, you got to just do the job for somebody repeatedly before you can win anything. Maybe she'll be presented like a star. Who knows? But we will see. The commentators promo the next match. And then they return to a shot of Nashville walking up the ramp. This felt like they were trying to fill time. I mean, I really got the sense of that later on in the show. Like, they must have been running short somehow, some way. Because it really feels like they were just trying to like, all right, we got to stretch this out as much as we can. Show her walking up the ramp. Let's get that on camera. Now, you could argue that is looking too deep into the show. You could argue that, and I will accept that. But the next match definitely shows me that they were just stretching time. And that next match, the next segment was Animal Instinct taking on the Mighty Mites in what is presented as a rematch from their previous encounter where the Mites went over and the Mites won. Animal Instinct comes out first, and they're followed by the Mites. McLean calls the Mighty Mites the superheroes of WoW. And the first thing I wrote after that was like, okay, so they're superheroes amongst other superheroes. Like, it's really hard to differentiate that when everybody's referred to, whether they're good, bad, heel, babyface, as all being superheroes. But somehow the Mighty Mites are also superheroes within the collective of superheroes. Not a big deal. It's just, honestly, if I were the guy in charge and I heard him say it, I would probably like, okay, look, you need to probably steer away from that. They cannot be superheroes within this collective of superheroes. You need to find something else that makes them stand out, makes them different, makes them unique. That's not it. It's not going to work. They being Animal Instinct, come out and do their normal spiel, wave to the camera, be physically obnoxious as they had their pretentious smile and all that good stuff. They do those characters. They do them well. We'll just start with that and not take any points off from what they were doing. When the Mites get down there and they are putting their capes away, Animal Instinct jumps them from behind. There's a little bit of a mix-up there for a couple of seconds because for whatever reasons, I guess they had their own designated person that they had to assault. Collins went in and started beating up on Spice, which left Jinx to kind of have to shuffle herself around because she was supposed to attack Sugar, but she was already in front of Spice. So they had to not change positions, but Jinx had to find her position there. We do the old double shot into the ropes, and Sugar and Spice are able to counter it and come back with some head scissors and send both heels down, and then they start to take control, or at least they try to, before Collins cuts it off, and then she's countered by Sugar. The match in and of itself is not a terrible match. It is a short match, which is largely what I would expect out of Animal Instinct, quite frankly. Not that Animal Instinct is terrible. Not that Animal Instinct has done a bad job of presenting who they are, what they do, and all that good stuff. But I also maintain that they're probably not as fluid / experienced to be able to have a match that goes beyond 5 or 6 minutes. And if everything that I've been told is true, that, they got to, practice these matches and they got like 5 days or so to get intact, I can imagine that they're probably not going to want to have a match that goes 8, 9, 10 minutes. It's just more to remember. So, back to the match at hand. This is kind of shown as not really a feud. I mean, it is a rematch of sorts. No one here has really had some sort of real beef with the other one beyond the fact that the Mites won the previous time. And it does make me question, all right, well, are they going to go to a third? Because, spoiler alert, the heels win. But will they come back to it? Will this be addressed again? Or are they just going to leave it at, well, they won one and we won one and we're satisfied? At some point within this match, it appears that Spice and Sugar, Mites, gain the advantage over Jinx. She's down in the middle of the ring. It looks like Spice is trying to come out the top to do something. Collins goes around and pushes her off of the top rope. Jinx then yanks Sugar and tosses her down. This is where they start taking control of Sugar. Spice seems to be out for the count, in commissioned or whatever, out of commission. I don't know why I was having a hard time getting that off, but she's out of commission. They cut it off on Sugar. Sugar's left to herself, as I guess that tumble off the top rope to the floor was a little bit more drastic than what Spice could handle. Goldie Collins sets Sugar up over across her back in torch rack position. Jinx then does the run into the ropes for their rolling neck breaker / shock drop. That's what Abyss used to call it. The shock treatment thing. Collins looked like she was about to run around the side to stop Spice, even though the count went down before that was necessary. So they hit their tandem move, pin Sugar. 1, 2, 3. Animal Instinct survives, or I should survive isn't even the right word. Animal Instinct wins. The heels have come back and got their big win and their big return. As always, the heels stand strong and wow. After the match, they cut a bit of a promo, and I guess I should say Animal Instinct wins with the pause for effect tandem move. They spend about a minute, they being wow, recapping the match, which is again why I said this episode was clearly running short some way, somehow. This is when they cut their promo. And it goes right back into the same stuff that I've had with Animal Instinct from the start. Like separate, they're not quite as obnoxious. Collectively, the animal puns are just over and over and over again. We hunt, our paws, and they're little mice, and just stuff like that. It's a pun-ridden promo that means nothing and probably goes nowhere. Because there's really no direction for them, so it's kind of just a vague type of a promo. Doesn't really mean much of anything. Now, I can go and admit, as I've said with several of them, they do it with conviction. They're not just standing there spouting words, but the promo in and of itself doesn't really offer that much. That whole promo goes back to everything that I said a couple of weeks ago. On their own is not nearly as obnoxious. Collectively, they're like the two kids in class that can be good and behave by themselves, but you stick them two together and then you get the worst of them both. And this was that. I am sorry to say I'm still not on the wagon of Animal. Yes, do I think they've gotten better? Yes. Do I think that they still show some promise? Yes. But no, man, me just jumping on the bandwagon of Animal Instinct like they're a great team. I'm not there yet. I'm just not there. And a lot of that is delivered off of the promos that they have handed the audience. I cannot describe it any better than saying it's just a pun-written promo about feathers and fur and scales, and they're back in Disney villainous mode, overacting. It's like it's like they belong in a Snow White rendition as the evil queen or something like that. And then you got this portion of it. I will give it this much credit. At least the beginning stages of it were directed at the mites. And then it just kind of veers off into like the overall tag team division. Now, it's better than them not saying anything at all. I want to make that clear because there's too many people that's on WoW who do not get to say anything, period. So I would prefer a bad promo, or in this case, a pun-written promo, than no promo at all. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done it. I just wish they had better material. Because even within this, there's like a portion of it where Katarina Jinx says something to the effect of, our offer still stands. And I'm like, what offer? What are you talking about? And I honestly don't know what she's talking about. It's like, when did they make an offer to the locker room? Or to anybody, for that matter? I don't know what you mean. And so that's why I labeled this promo as pretty much meaningless. It's not going anywhere. It might help them. So there is the positive in that. But as far as like pushing Animal Instinct towards this thing, that doesn't exist. And honestly, when it gets into the animal-based references that they have to have because they're Animal Instinct, it is part of which makes me tune them out. It's hard for me to absorb that because it doesn't feel like a genuine thing. It just feels like somebody sat in the back, hey, I got this great promo that I wrote for y'all. Say these things. That's what it feels like. I could be wrong. Maybe they came up with it on their own. Who knows? And I know there are people out there that love them. They're like, oh man, this is a great team. They're the best team in wrestling. I love them. You know, so I fully acknowledge that they have their base. But trying to get them across to a wider audience past the WoW faithful, trying to get them across past that mark, I don't know if this is the way to do it. I don't. Moving on. Next segment, promo for the next match. That's going to be Holidead versus Classmaster. Then the segment following that, the commentators. Zane is trying to get the unveil of the participants of the Lumberjack match. This is basically to make who the participants are seem important. My first thing was, why can't he wait? And the second question I had past that was like, well, why doesn't he know? I mean, he's part of the show and he's sitting directly next to the guy who alleged to handpicked these Lumberjacks. Yeah, we can go with the idea that, well, maybe David just wanted to keep it a surprise. We can go with that. But why was it so important that he needed to know the Lumberjacks like 5 minutes before they walked out? I don't know. He just needed to know it, or at least try to know. I got the impression that this segment was there to try to build the intrigue of, well, who's going to participate in this thing? Who's going to help keep the order? Who's going to make sure that these competitors don't go off the rails and just try to run and tear stuff up and this, that. I understood the effort of the intrigue, but this also comes back to how it got executed, pull the rug out from all of that. Now, keep in mind, I haven't said anything bad about the show overall yet. Now, there's little nitpicky things, sure. But the Sylvia Sanchez, Nikki Nashville match was fine. The Animal Instinct Mighty Mice match was fine. Nitpicky things, yes, I've given you. But the show overall, if you're just watching it from that point on, it was fine. No issues. Nor did I have an issue with the next match, which was Classmaster with Samantha Smart versus Holidead. I have been noted is not being a massive Classmaster fan. At one point, I thought that she had the potential if they just did something different with her, if they showed her to be more dominant, took away some of the silliness and things like that. I didn't and do not agree with the presentation of her. But then I also see her on, various, I'm saying indie shows very loosely. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, okay, no, this is probably not going anywhere. Especially as I see Lois Grain in a bar allowing somebody to staple dollar bills to her ass. I mean, and standing there while it's happening, like, whoa, what's going on? What are you doing? That. Whatever hope that I had for her as a potential star because of size and stature, that is long gone. And even, like I said, the presentation of her, when you see the first seconds of her coming out to ringside, first thing you see is Samantha Smart. She has to stand behind her, and then she comes out and looks at the book and blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, the commentators start talking about how Smart accidentally revealed that she cheated and she tried to get DQ'd. I don't even know how to address that story. Why was that a big secret? And I don't even know if I would go so far as to say accidentally. It was pretty goddamn blatant. She told you. I mean, I know David McClain was trying to rope it around so it would make some sense for their narrative. But she didn't say I was trying to do this to get myself disqualified. She said that you should have disqualified me for having this thing. Because if it were just a case of I was trying to get disqualified, why didn't you just run in there and do something? Or hit her over the top of the head with a yardstick or whatever, whatever the case may be. And it's not like this is the first time we've seen some sort of cheat take place with the Classmaster. But this always comes back. It always comes back around to David McClain sitting at ringside violates the rules of their universe. He can't sit there and actively call people cheating. Ignore it, except for when I don't want to ignore it. And so this is one of those cases where I don't want to ignore it. It was revealed that Smart accidentally, and I, air quotes, accidentally, revealed that she tried to cheat for the DQ. And now they have to start over at the bottom, allegedly, in order to work themselves back up to get another title shot. Meanwhile, other parties have gotten title shots just because they said, hey, we're first in line. Maybe it works differently when you weren't a champion previously. I don't know. Xander McClain carry on about the identities of the Lumberjacks, which is completely unimportant. Again, I get that they're trying to build some kind of intrigue, like people will stay tuned to find out who the identities of the Lumberjacks are. Well, give me a hint. Who are they, David? That. They also talk about the injury of Tormentor, while this is starting. And within their universe, again, Tormentor's hurt, and they have no idea when she's going to get back. Within reality, we know that Tormentor's okay, and she's currently, as I last saw, in the ring with Natty Neidhart in Mexico, AAA. So I would say thumbs up to Tormentor, or Chick Tormentor there. But they, on the show, have to address that their champion went down in flames and she's hurt. And because of her family in Mexico, we've been asked to respect the wishes and not mention anything and say this and say that and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is pretty much the talk of Tormentor and the championship as this match is beginning up. Classmaster has her normal stance and facial expressions and the overall that stuff that she likes to do, which brings to mind what a coworker said to me, because for the life of him, he's watched for several weeks now, And he's a different. He this isn't Maestro. This isn't Miss New Hire. I haven't had a nickname for him specifically. But he's watched, and for the life of him, he's like, I do not get the class. See, he doesn't understand her. Like, is she supposed to be smart or not? Is it? Because he sees her come down, and she's got the manager, and she's got the glasses. I'm IQ superior, all that stuff. And then he's like, well, all I see up next to her is just this woman walking around pointing her finger at her head. I was like, he basically was like, it would make more sense that she just walked out there like, me book, read. That was pretty much his. That was pretty much his description of what he thought the Classmaster looked like. And, I was like, at this point, I would probably accept that. I was like, if you're going to be the big idiot that thinks that they're smart, then just be the big idiot that thinks that they're smart. And I found that just tickled me to death when he said that at the time. Just this big lummox that comes out here that thinks he's some sort of genius and just frowns and, I have book. Look at me. Schoolgirl smart. Anyhow, so she gets past showing the book off that they claim that, hey, it could have a sheet of metal in there or whatever the fuck. And then here comes Holidead. Now, because Holidead is out there and she's a vet and she knows what she's doing, I expected the best out of this, and I got that. And Holidead is powerful, and she's strong enough that she can actually look the part of somebody that can stand up to, fight with, and move the Classmaster around. Whereas everybody else they have in there is usually kind of shoved and whatnot. Holidead was not that person. And to Zane's credit, he made it a point to bring up the fact that I know you said that she was going to start at the bottom of the barrel, but Holidead doesn't represent the bottom of the barrel. Good call on him, because you don't want to put her down there as like, oh, well, this is the lowest of the low. That wasn't the case, and I'm glad that he pointed it out. And it also gives Classmaster somebody that is competitive / on the level that she can compete with and or beat. But again, if you go back, you look at the match, there are these points where Holidead is just showing her strength. And she does a fantastic job of doing it. But if we're going to give credit where credit is due, we got to give that to the Classmaster also. There's a point in this match where Holidead gives her Irish whip into the ropes, and Classmaster fires out of that corner with a beautiful clothesline. It's the moments like that where I'm like, there's something there, but I just don't know if it's something that she personally wants to do. I think she's just happy goofing off and playing the part. And, hey, I'm on TV. Look at me. I'm the 6'2" schoolgirl. Even though they've never referred to her as such, but that's how she dresses. So that's how she will be addressed by me. Holidead does a fantastic job of, again, being able to hoist her up, toss her around, shove her around, clothesline, shoulder blocks, pump kicks, body slams, tossing her out the ring. Just being able to show that Holidead is not one of these smaller competitors. It also forced, seemingly, Samantha Smart to take the role of a typical manager. There have been times where Smart does not illustrate nor show herself to be cowardly or less than or whatever the case may be to the wrestlers that are in the ring with her client. But this is one of the points where it does get a little bit of that happening. As Holidead has control of the Classmaster on the apron, Samantha Smart attempts to hit her with the yardstick. Now, of course, this would be considered blatant cheating. So we're going back to that whole thing of, well, she tried to get disqualified. Would this be considered a case of trying to get yourself disqualified? Because it ain't like she tried to hide it. She came over there right by her and like, I'm going to take a shot at you. Now, the only thing that makes this work is that Holidead caught her. She caught her, caught the yardstick, and then we start this little tug of war between the two of them. Then Holidead just lets it go, and Classmaster, Samantha Smart falls on her ass because, I didn't know that she was going to let go. We see Classmaster hanging throat first across the outside of the apron enough to where Holidead would be able to get her leg drop on the outside across her. But we also see the Classmaster have her hand on the ropes being prepared to move. It was a nice little, you wouldn't have caught that initially, but it was a nice little thing that she had. So she pulls herself away, and then she catches Holidead in the rear with the drop kick and sends her down to the floor. We see the overacting fans out there in the front row. Like, get up! Do something! Classmaster gets Holidead with a big body slam out on the floor. And she gets back into the ring after the referee comes out, hey, you okay? Which he should do. Good for him. As this is going on, we get another Samantha Smart moment when she can be the dastardly manager. She comes over there and she chokes out Holidead with her yardstick. And then after she's done, she runs away, or at least scoots back around. And again, this part bothers me. David McLean is sitting right there. The man that made the decision, like, you have to start at the bottom, but somehow this is like perfectly fine. She comes over there, choked her out right in front of David McLean, the general manager / commentator / bell ringer / ring announcer / lead interviewer. All of these hats he wears. But I guess he can't wear more than one at a time, so it got passed off like, oh, look at her, she's doing that. And then it just moved on. Classmaster comes out. She gets Holidead. She shoves her back into the ring. Let's get towards the end of this thing. Because the match in and of itself, I can't say it's just flat and cold. That would be an incorrect description. Much like what we had with Animal Instinct and the Mighty Mice. Even though it wasn't some ongoing thing, there is a narrative that exists underneath it. And you might be able to say that about all matches that were presented on this episode so far. You got the underneath story of Nikki Nashville having not been beaten and, starting up her wild career. You got the underneath story of Animal Instinct wanting to get another match against the Mites and doing so and avenging their loss. You got the underlying story of the Classmaster starting from allegedly the bottom and trying to work herself back up. So even though it's not completely in the front of everything, there is some level of angle / story that takes place amongst all of these, despite the fact that whether it's prominently featured or not. So, as this match is going on, we've seen Smart do the managerial thing. We've seen Smart get outsmarted by Holidead. And I wrote down this is the closest that we've seen Smart to being a standard manager. They continue on. Classmaster takes I was going to say a shot, but more accurately, tries to kick Holidead in the corner. Holidead gets out of the way. That gets her leg being the Classmaster, tied up on the ropes. And she then just gets kicked and kicked and kicked in her thighs. Smart gets up on the apron and starts yelling at Holidead. And Holidead yells at her and gets off of the apron. Like, hey, get down, or whatever she says. She goes down. Classmaster then comes up behind Holidead, who turns around and walks into a kick in the gut and follow with a DDT. It's an excellent DDT. Looks great. So we're not going to get on execution. Same rules apply, as I said, about top tier. Not talking about the execution of what has been done in the ring. We're talking about the presentation of said talent. Even though last episode, as I was talking about top tier's presentation, they finally got some stuff going on that would allow you to see them as a little bit more healed than what they would have regularly been. Holidead kicks out of the DDT. Then there's a struggle for the suplex where they're trying to see who's jockeying for position. Holidead is able to stop it. It gets whipped off the ropes, turns it around into a short arm clothesline. And then she catches Classmaster with a couple of runs into the kitchen sink, which are knee lifts into the gut. Holidead executes with ferocity. Ferocity. Those knee lifts look great. Hoists her up on her shoulders. Gets her with a fall-away slam. We won't call it a Samoan drop. She ain't Samoan. Then she looks like she's trying to go for her finish. And I forget the name of the thing, but it's basically a double underhook facebuster. She being the Classmaster, is able to break free just based on strength. Then she grabs the throat of Holidead. Looks like she's going for a choke slam. Holidead is able to break that. She then hoists Classmaster up on her shoulders. And as she's doing this, Samantha Smart gets back up on the apron. And I think there might have been a little bit of a timing issue there because before Holidead could take a lunge at her, she pretty much already jumped down. And I know that was basically what it was for. Like, I'm going to put Classmaster down, and then I'm going to take a shot at you. You're going to get out of the way, and then I'll walk into Classmaster's finish, which is what happened. I mean, and it's not like it's painfully bad. It's not. It just could have been a little tighter in her jumping down and away from Holidead. Holidead was maybe a second or two away from charging at Smart, but that little segment I use loosely. But that little portion of it where she does charge at her, I mean, it just felt like it was a second or two off. I know the referee was there also, and he probably said, hey, get down, and she did. But the visual was Holidead trying to get a hold of her, trying to take a swipe at her. So anyhow, she does that, but then she turns around into the expulsion, or I guess that's what they call it. Classmaster hoists Holidead up over her shoulders, then flings her down onto the mat. 1, 2, 3, she gets the win. Which also takes me back to while I was dropping the book on the mat so someone could be slammed on it on her finish necessary. Seems like the finish works without the book. But I digress. So we get a win from the Classmaster, and I guess she's starting to stack herself back up the ladder one rung at a time. Smart comes in. She cuts a promo after the match. And, of course, the Classmaster makes silly faces as she does this because what else would you expect? I will add also that at least her promo had a point. It's not that that she went off the rails or just started speaking in her IQ superior puns, because we know that can happen. We just saw it a match ago. But here, delivery aside, there was a point there. Starts off and, basically puts over, the concept of them being smarter than everybody. Of course, they have to do that. And then it's going to be the second, this isn't verbatim, but the second stance of their reign as they climb back up to the top. I'm filling in blanks right now. And essentially, this is a message towards their climb to regain the championship. I'm fine with that. And she then puts over the Classmaster that she should still be the champion if Dave McClain can read the rule book. Fine with that also. In the sense of WoW and the many hats that David wears, it doesn't make sense because him being able to read the rule book or not wouldn't make any difference because he basically creates the rules. And he can change them at any given time, as we have seen. But there was a direction here. If there was anything that I would add, I would like her to work on the delivery of that. That would be the only thing. Because there are times when it sounds forced and rehearsed. But the content was good. The content was fine. I guess I just have to accept that, the puns are going to exist. I just hope that they don't overdo it with talking up how smart we are and IQ superior. You all are idiots and whatever. Because the one person that wasn't going to show himself to be an idiot next to Samantha Smart was David McLean, and he didn't. So moving on. The next segment, they promo the Lumberjacks. And the Lumberjacks are as follows. Reina Del Rey, BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni. And Dave McClain says that we got the entire alliance here, which I guess, isn't Adriana Gambino part of the alliance, but anyhow. Goldie Collins, Katarina Jinx, Genesis, Sylvia Sanchez, Fury, Xena Phoenix, Kara Kai, Santana Garrett, Princess Ozzy, Chanchella Chella, Nikki Nashville, Tiki Chamorro, Kalaki, the Island Girl. They round out all the Lumberjacks. And I guess that was worth the wait. I don't know. We had a segment after that where Zane is prepping for something. I honestly don't remember what it was, so I'm not even going to pretend to act like I know. Because whatever it was, I didn't feel like it was important enough at the time for me to write down. Segment after that is Animal Instinct being told the rules of the Lumberjack match as they act like they don't fully understand. This is played for comedy, but I will give this much credit. In fairness to the comedy that was done, at least it was within the content of, or the context of them being wrestlers, not out there trying to be stand-up comedians. Now, I don't necessarily care for the wrestler that like, hey, what are these rules again? So and we get to scratch them, right? And at least this fits the context of what is going on around them. Yes, it's played for comedy, but I also could accept that neither one of them would be overly familiar with a Lumberjack match because they haven't had a Lumberjack match. And we know that their wrestling existence begins at WOW, so why would they? And probably hadn't watched much of wrestling preceding being at WOW, so again, why would they? As much as I would have liked to have said this is ridiculous and this is stupid and why are they doing it, as much as I would have liked to have said that, I cannot in all good conscience do that. They did fine. The next segment, Sibley Scoles. She too is trying to sell the main event, and they recap the WOW feud. And of course, Scoles is looking off to other things like Scoles does. Segment after that is HollySwag, Penelope Pink with Lana Star. They cut a promo. This takes place in the WOW hallway. And I guess we're going to have to do it out the WOW hallway in a couple of weeks since they're going to be out at the Fremont Street Experience. I'm sure they have to find some place to do the interviews and whatnot. And the heel promos where they used to be at the bottom of the WOW steps. Now they're in the WOW hallway. So I'm sure that they'll substitute it with something. The next segment, which is yet another portion of I am sure that this episode was running short. They give you the WOW superhero spot. The We Are WOW. It was nice. They normally don't have it, which is why I'm like, that just probably isn't something that they would have normally done unless they had to do it. I did neglect to mention that I thought the promo that Swag, Pink, and Star, all three of them, did while walking down the hallway was good as it related to them. First beginning with Lana Star walking out. I was like, why is none of our pictures on this hallway? Which I don't know why, but that just kind of tickled me. But yeah, I was like, it sounds, again, this is one of those cases if it fits who she is. It sounds like something that Lana Star would say. Like, despite that we're about to walk out here to have my talent go into this Lumberjack match, her self-absorbed thoughts like, where's our pictures? Meanwhile, you got Swag doing what the HollySwag does, talking the big talk, and we'll just do this and do that and beat them up, and then 1, 2, 3, we'll retain the championships. And then Pink, also somewhat self-absorbed, mentions that, hey, there is no Fab Four anymore. I mean, again, paraphrasing, because they ruined it. And now we're going to finish this thing out. They just ruined everything that and then she catches us like that we worked to build. And so, they just kind of go off into that. So I thought that their little segment that they came out with and did this promo walking down the hallway was good for them. Now, here is where my problem lies. All of these, the promo for the Lumberjacks, the Animal Instinct thing, Sibley Scoles selling the main event. Like, we've got to do this because we're going to make sure this. Dave McClain mentioning it. Them holding out for the Lumberjacks. All this, we're going to settle this tonight. Come to promo with the heel team walking out there. All of that led to nothing. That was where the problem was. I was legitimately okay with the show up until this point. I mean, not literally these segments, but up until the end of the episode. It was like, seriously, another one of these? It feels like they bastardized stipulations just because. Did no one there have another way to get out of this? I mean, something. The episode, fine. This match took that away from me. It yanked the rug out from underneath me. And doesn't have much to do with the talent involved. It's just another rinse and repeat. Why are we going through? We have no way to solve this problem. What else do we do? Why we keep going there? And we might as well just go ahead and talk about it. So the segment following the superhero spot of We Are Wild is top tier. Being advertised against Daisy Lane, Chainsaw, and Fury. That's the promo for next week. So I can assume that they're going to be the next phase of top tier's feud. Maybe it will start to get better. Like I said, the previous week they actually showed them in the backstage. We actually got to see why Chainsaw's mad at him. I had a big issue with, well, they don't really cheat all that much. So they don't come across as far as in-ring work as a heel team to me. But perhaps this team will force them to have to cheat. Being that Chainsaw is the resident monster of the promotion, of the show. Maybe that will make them have to cheat and they will show a different side of themselves. But time will tell, and that's a different story for a different podcast. Hit my fan over there. Yeah, sorry about that. That was a little peek behind the curtain. Anyhow, the main event and the next segment is Miami's Sweet Heat versus Penelope Pink and HollySwag with Lana Star. And unlike normal, Lana Star comes out there and she goes and sits next to David McClain. Normally, she's out there at least managing her clients. She is acceptable sitting there because she doesn't do it all the time. Now, I still don't necessarily care for the idea that if you are a manager, you just have to go and do it. Like, hey, this is what I need to be doing. I just got to go sit down next to Dave McClain and whatnot. But this is what they've done. This is what's been kind of written in. So she does, and she goes sit next to David so they can have a conversation about whatever. It should be noted that the Lumberjacks already at ringside. Well, they did come out throughout the show, the introduction, but they're already at ringside by the time we get the ring announcer announcing the competitors. It also should be noted that for whatever reason, even though Fury over the last 2 weeks has been presented as a babyface, for whatever reason, is standing over there with the heel side. I don't know. It goes back to me saying, I do not understand what they do with Fury. She doesn't have a legitimate, clear direction. They just kind of plop her where she needs to be. Assumably, this trios match that they got coming up might solve that problem. But she is back and forth. She's heel, she's baby. We never know. Which only makes me appreciate Sylvia Sanchez that much more. And any of the other ones that have committed themselves to being the heel and making it definitive that they are a heel and not just some wishy-washy shade of gray. So they're out there, and then we get a ring announcer doing the normal ring announcer thing. The following contest is good for one fall. Hold up the mic, one fall. I am so tired of that. I certainly hope that when they get to the next set of tapings, that somebody has told her, it is not necessary for you to hold this up to cue the audience every time you say one fall. I'm sure that won't stop, but it would be nice if it did. So it starts off with Miami Sweet Heat coming out first, doing their thing. My coworker also wanted me to make it clear and point out that the body bump of Miami Sweet Heat knocked Lori down. Now, look, things happen. It just happened. But for whatever reason, that was just like the most entertaining thing for him. It's like, hey, she just got knocked over. And it happened very quickly, but it did happen. But it wasn't something I was going to harp on. I only even bring it up is because he asked me to bring it up. So after that, then we get the champions that came out, Penelope Pink and HollySwag. And like I said, Lana Star goes and she sits right next to David McLean so they can have their conversation. Excuse me. Consider that the match is going to be more or less under like tornado rules. No one's tagging in, no one's tagging out. It's going to be all four in the ring at one time for the titles. And then we get to the match itself. And I hate having to look at this match as a bore or a drag. It wasn't boring. But man, the stipulation of this match and it just being, again, I can't even phrase it any better than saying it being bastardized is just annoying. I mean, it would be fine every once in a, if it happened once. But it's like when we get the one thing happening here, it just keeps happening. Hey, we got a number one contenders match, so let's just make 5 or 6 more of them. Hey, we had a no contest. That's a good finish. Let's just do it again. It's too much of it. Somebody should have been able to offer up a suggestion like, hey, maybe we could do something else to get out of this. Maybe we can have some sort of alternative rather than it just ending with nothing. So we got the match started, and the match in and of itself is not some sort of Matt classic, but it does fine for the times that we have it. We got the heels tossing Lori out to the floor, and when she goes to the floor, she took like one punch, and then they picked her up, back up, and like, hey, get back in the ring, and then she does. Like a push on the back, and then that was it. I was like, oh, okay, that was all. Then HollySwag takes Lori, and she pushes her right back out of the ring, and then you get maybe a stomp in the head or something by BK Rhythm. It's like they were told, hey, don't attack until we get to the time that everybody has to attack because that's your cue. It was somewhat boring. I mean, on the Lumberjack end of it. It was the heel side. I expected them to attack. I expected them to maul them and then toss her back into the ring. But we didn't get anything close to that. You got like a punch or two, and then that was it. Then on the babyface side, we got Swag, she gets tossed out, and then she just gets picked back up and put back in the ring by the babyfaces. As Miami Sweet Heat get control over Penelope Pink. And then we get another one of those. You know, they start brawling around again. And then Swag did she get put back out at some point? No, it was Pink. Pink was the next one to go. Pink goes back out. Or I should say goes out. And then she's put back into the ring. Swag goes out after that. And she's put back into the ring. Nothing really happened as far as that was concerned. Now, you expect that on the babyface side, that they're not going to take cheap shots, that they're just going to get them back in, and then, you know, that's that. Pink goes back out, and she is picked back up, and then she just pretty much like push everybody off her, like, get off me, before she gets back into the ring. I like the competitors here. I don't know if I am in love with how this match is executed or how it finished. Like in my mind, and I'm sure that, you know, that there's 1,000 ways to do it. But in my mind, the heels bail out. The babyfaces are forced out. Them trying to, you know, the babyfaces start getting control of the match. And they're beating them, and they're beating them, and they're beating them. And then it gets to the point like, holy shit, I can't take no more. I got to get out of here. Catch my breath. No, I can't get out. They just threw me back in. This is also why I was like, it doesn't really make sense in the narrative of they've not really run. Penelope Pink actually forced the Lumberjacks off of her and got back in. And then on the heel side, where you're expecting them to come in and attack and maul and all that stuff, nothing. A punch, a kick or two, and then it's back in the ring. And I know the Wild fan base is going to look at this as like, this is an amazing Lumberjack match. I'm sorry, I can't agree. I just can't. Regardless of whether I like them or not, I just cannot. How this plays out is mind-boggling to me, first off. And then when it goes into its finish, is worse. This is essentially just a couple of punches, a couple of slams, aggression towards each other within the ring, and then some light, minor taps on the outside, if that. Until it gets to the finish of the match. So we move on. And the baby faces on one side, heels on the other. We've had the tosses out, or the tossing of them out to the floor. And then we get to what is, I guess, the key portion of where this match falls apart, in my estimation. Lindsay is tossed out of the ring. When she hits the floor, Animal Instinct are the first ones in line of attacking her. And here we go. That's good for them that they actually attacked. Phoenix comes over to try to break it up, and then all the babyfaces come over and try to break up. Then all the babyfaces and all the heels start pairing off, and they just start fighting. Not only do they all start fighting, but they all start fighting away from the ring. Just start walking up the ramp, beating on each other. And I'm looking at this as like, okay, so the first time that the heels legitimately attack the babyfaces, all the Lumberjacks just fight to the back. All of them. Not one could stay. Not one could be like, we got to do our jobs. The referee didn't try to do anything. Nothing. It just, hey, they're all fighting away, and that's it. My plan backfired. This was so disappointing. It was so disappointing. I mean, if you gave me 30 minutes, I probably would come up with something that got you out of that and got to the same spot without having to bastardize a good stipulation. Never mind the fact that of the Lumberjacks out there, who amongst them were involved in some sort of feud that would instigate that kind of hatred? Like, oh, well, we all got to go fighting now. Where was that? And I could have understood it if there was at least one or two people in there that had that. And if those individuals fought off. But everybody, all of them fought off. And for no apparent reason. Beyond the fact that we're here and they're baby faces and we're heels, so we have to. It genuinely, and I other times would say that I might be exaggerating the fact, but here this is no exaggeration. It genuinely just abused the Lumberjack match and made it worthless. Never mind that it makes WOW as a, and I'm going to say promotion, even though I know it's not, but it makes WOW as a promotion so inconsequential. They can't maintain anything. The fines don't mean anything. People can cheat in front of the guy that runs the place. It doesn't mean anything. I have a stipulation that two of which shouldn't even come close to resulting in a no contest ruling, and those don't mean anything. We have a hardcore match to try to solve this problem. Oh, no, can't do that. It's a no contest. We have a Lumberjack match because that will solve it. And they spent a good portion of this episode telling you that this is supposed to solve this problem. Nothing. Why? Somebody explain it. Why was this considered a good idea? So close to another no contest. I mean, how many more different ways can they screw it up? And that's how it comes off to me. I'm sorry, and I'm sure somebody will be like, well, we got a plan and whatever. How many more ways can you screw it up? Somebody said to me, it's like, well, maybe they'll just go to a steel cage match. I was like, you know what? At this point, I would not be surprised if they don't know how to screw that up too. Well, the cage collapsed, so it was another no contest. It would not shock me. All of them just fell to the floor at the same time. It was no contest. I genuinely would not be surprised in the least if whatever stipulation they come up with next, they turn around and find some way to make it a no contest regardless of what the rules are. How many more times are you going to try to do this and then want people to stick with it outside of your normal WOW crowd? I would have been far more inclined to say something good about it had, say, let's just say Miami Sweet Heat got cheated by Animal Instinct on the outside. Like during the course of the chaos and the Lumberjack match, and in my world, the Lumberjacks would not be fighting off because it's your goddamn job to stay around ringside and do what they paid you to do. Stay there and keep people at ringside. If you fight a little bit, fine, but get back in your positions. That would have been the ruling in my universe. But let's just say that the brawl does happen and there's chaos going on. But one of the members of Animal Instinct grabs something like a belt or whatever, smack Lindsay in the back of the head, knock her out, leaving her vulnerable for Penelope Pink to win. 1, 2, 3, boom. So now you've got two directions that you could take Miami Sweet Heat. We still got to get even with these two. But Animal Instinct has stuck their nose in our business. And they cost us the win. Because why? You know, you could even rope in the fact that they had a match and it was allegedly for a number one contendership. And they're mad about it. Something. Just give me something else. But this is what happens. All of the Lumberjacks fought off, and then what happens past that? The teams fight off. Like the second that all the Lumberjacks were gone, then they get outside the ring. And now they're fighting up the ramp. Why? I don't know. What's so special about going to the back and fighting that way? Like, if I was really wanting to beat somebody up, I don't know if I would be walk fighting them through the building to do it. But that's what they did. And like I said, the second that it happened, it's like, well, we can't help ourselves. We got to go fighting off onto the ramp and towards the back. And that's what they did. They started fighting out of the ramp towards the back. And McClain's like, oh, my plan is backfired. Then he gets on the house mic as they up the ramp and going off in the back. And nothing has been settled tonight. And I'm sure that's what everybody would want to hear as it relates to a wrestling match that they paid for. But since these fans here apparently do not pay to come in to see this, I'm sure they could care less. And I wrote down, why would every single Lumberjack leave? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And why did this, even if you get past that, why does them going to the back constitute a no contest? I mean, seriously, just think about it. It's a Lumberjack match. There's not really any rules applied to it. They could have very well just fought themselves right back to that ring. So why is it that them fighting off in this constitute that, well, shit, they just left, so we can't do anything else about it. No contest. I don't know. So what's next? A Falls Count Anywhere match? Which they probably should have just gone ahead and had by now. And even then, I concerned that a Falls Count Anywhere match will wind up the same way as this. Hey, guys, they just fought out to the street. We can't do anything about it. No contest. The only thing that gives me any sort of hope that this nonsense will end is that they are coming close to the end of what is alleged to be their taping cycle. Like I said, this is their 48th episode. And as such, they should have about 4 of them left. One or two of which I'm pretty sure is some recap episode by the end of the year. But if we're going off of September to September, then they should be coming around to it. And hopefully this will just be over and done with. This is not something that would make me want to tune in week and week out to see them. I'm sorry, it just isn't. There are better ways to use both sides of this equation. One, Pink and Swag almost are locked into dealing with Miami Sweet Heat and haven't had I can't even remember them having a title defense against anybody else. Have they? It's been buried underneath this for so long that I genuinely have forgotten. And I've said for years, Miami Sweet Heat does not have to exist in the orbit of a tag team title constantly. And the more I think about that random alternate that I just gave, like the more it makes sense to me that, you know what, maybe that's what they should have did, or somebody should have suggested it. And then you could have gotten them off of this thing, at least for a little while, had them feud with Animal Instinct for a week or two, come back around to Pink and Swag with a last-ditch effort, winner take all. If we can't win, there's some stipulation to put some gravitas on it. If we can't win, we'll leave. I mean, but they have burnt up these stipulations. And like I said, while as a loosely used term here, promotion, while as a promotion does not follow through with those type of rulings and stipulations until they just want to do it. Aside from that, inmates run the asylum until they cross Dave McClain's path and he has to put them in their place and let you know who's the real boss of this thing. Me. I am so sorry that this has resulted in the direction that it's gone. I expect them to clean it up relatively soon. Same thing that I expect with Top Tier, but who knows with them? They might turn around and survive and keep those vanity belts next week. I hope not, but then again, I also do not care. So, time will tell. The clock is ticking. The episode should be running out. And maybe, just maybe, we will move on to something else. And then the next task will be how many people that are currently on this WoW roster / taping cycle that we're watching are going to be back. Because at some point in there, he said, well, we got a roster of 35 people. I was like, well, that's a little light from the last time that I counted it. And some of these people hadn't been back there in weeks. Whatever happened to Catalina Speed? Where did Roxy go? I mean, some of them just vanished, just disappeared. Some might have been moved on to other bigger, better things, but, you get what I'm saying here. Valentina Diamante, she took her little squash match from Scout Parker, then hadn't been seen since. Miranda Mirage. Where happened to all those magic tricks and this new WoW signing that we had? That's, our new superhero. Look at her. Wow, she's amazing. What happened to that? Anyhow, that was the episode. And as such, I guess I can read what is coming up and what is in front of me next. So, it is quite possible that you would have watched or are watching what I'm about to read here, their preview for the next episode of WoW. So just bear with me. I want to see because I have not watched it yet as of this recording. So what kind of response am I going to have to what they have for me today? Well, let's take a look. This press release is for Season 3, Episode 49. The title is Girls and Dolls. And it reads, the battle for the Trios Championship is on, but this one is personal. Monsters in Metal are hell-bent on annihilating top-tier thugs after Candy Crush sadistically tore the head off of Daisy Lane's treasured doll. Tonight, the score will be settled, but who will come out on top? Gabriella Cruz continues to make her way through the WoW superhero roster. This week, she takes on BK Rhythm, who is accompanied by the fashionable Gigi Gianni. Scout Parker and Sprout Greens have another encounter with Big Rig Betty and Jesse Jones. The four have been squabbling ever since the environmentalists ambushed the gritty Southern gal pals at the when did that happen? Okay, I'm sorry. At a grocery store. Sorry. Still out to attain WoW's World Championship title, Queen Pins of the Ring Genesis and Santana Garrett take to the mat against one another to prove they are worthy of the holy grail of women's professional wrestling. Well, I'm sorry, y'all will not be getting the holy grail of women's professional wrestling because you're not in the company to get it. That title is currently being held by either Naomi or, who I guess Io Scott lost, or Tiffany Stratton. So, sorry. That's not gonna happen, ladies. But you can go for the WoW Championship. So, the battle for the vanity belts is on. And they got a name already, Monsters in Metal. That's a nice name. I don't know. I assume that they will win, they being the baby faces, but I've lost so much interest in Top Tier as a faction. I mean, the matches are entertaining, but as a faction for me, and I'm only going to speak for me, I just have not had the interest in seeing what they're involved in. And that's largely built on that their angles have been so weak. I appreciate that a week ago that they tried to give them a little bit more, flavor to them, give them some extra layers to who they are and what they're doing. They showed a backstage segment. They got promo time. They got the match. All of those things were great. But it's like a last-minute turn for me. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of them just being top tier, and they haven't helped to elevate anybody. This is probably it, but it feels like too little too late. What was the next thing? BK Rhythm against, you know what? This is probably the time that Gabriella Cruz will win, even though she's been on a losing streak. I don't know what they wrote here. Like, she continues to make her way through the Raw superhero roster. How's she doing that? By losing once a week? And if it were anybody else other than BK Rhythm, I would probably say that Cruz is losing. But since they treat the Brat Pack with loss after loss after loss, I expect Cruz to finally get a win here, regardless of whether Gigi Gianni is there or not. If Rhythm does win, I will be amazed and surprised. And I also expect Gambino not to be there, even though she's supposed to be their manager. The Environmentalists against Big Rigs and Bourbon. And what is this thing? This is what made me stop. Ambush the gritty Southern gal pals at the grocery store. When did this happen? If I remember correctly, when they said it, this was like they got ambushed walking into the building. They didn't mention anything about a grocery store. Never mind the fact that even if they did, if they were supposed and alleged to be attacked and hurt and concussed by these two cardboard cutout signs, neither of which have a lick of wood on them or anything strong enough to knock anyone out. And they haven't done any promos to help sell this thing. Scout Parker and Sprout Greens haven't said anything about the stick that they took. Jesse Jones and Big Rick Betty haven't mentioned why it's important. Maybe they will this episode. Zayn did, but it goes back to what has been said for weeks. They've got to do it themselves. Which, if I'm going to give any thumbs up to what they've done recently, at least they had top tier, seen as ripping the head off the doll, opposed to, hey, you know what happened backstage? She ripped the doll's head off. So give them credit for that, regardless of how badly it might have been shot. They need to get somebody that knows how to do the audio and make sure the audio works. But that's a criticism for another episode or a past episode. I already did it. And then we're back to the same old. Is Santana Garrett taking on Genesis. And they are trying to put this, what is this, another number one contenders match? I hope we're not going to go through another rotation of that. Still out to obtain the Wild's World Championship title. Why is Genesis even still in the conversation for this? How many more times does she have to lose and then complain like, I need another title shot, I've been exiled? And that needs to get out of her vocabulary. I mean, the group is over with. Get past that. You don't have to go, I'm exiled. They exiled me. They exiled me from title shots. We don't have to go through that all the time. And Santana Garrett, oh my, I love you, but man, they have just ruined her. I mean, what else can they have her do? She took being screwed out of her championship shot by Paola Mayfield and hadn't said a word about it. Not I'm going to get even. Not I had a title shot and I deserve another one immediately. I mean, this is not the first time this happened. This is like the second or third. One of the times I remember she won the number one contendership match and then got placed right back into a number one contendership match. How many more times can they screw over? And then expect me to care? But anyhow, that's what we're looking forward to. That's what I'm waiting to watch. And we'll see if it turns out any better. I can certainly hope that when they go to their next cycle of tapings, that a couple of things were heard and they at least tried to implement. One, good, bad, or indifferent, I would prefer a bad promo than them not having one at all and having the commentators have to explain everything. And that applies to backstage segments too. Now, I want the backstage segments to be good. And by that, I don't just mean the performance of it, I mean the production of it as well. They should not be putting stuff on the air where the microphone, the boom mic was off, and we're just getting ambient sound through the camera. They should be doing better than that. So either hire some people who are good at what they do, or don't allow those clips to air, reshoot it. And lastly, the referencing of each other on commentary constantly. I would have added in Dave McClain needs to get out of the commentating booth and he's concentrating on doing one or the other, being the general manager or being the commentator, but he shouldn't be doing both. But I've also said that for, what are we going on, three seasons now, and it ain't changed, and I doubt that it's gonna, so I'm not gonna even bother making that suggestion. But I will suggest that, and I'm talking to you, Nigel Zane, please curve back on the amount of times that you mention David's name per sentence. That would be greatly appreciated. And probably make this a far more digestible piece of audio / show. It'd be nice if David would stop, knock it off with the, hey, Nigel. It'd be nice if he stopped that too. But I certainly don't think that he will even attempt to not do that. Nigel Zane might try. And I hope that he does. I'll take half of the name mentioning being cut off rather than it not being cut off at all. And there we have it. Whew. Please, if you're on YouTube, do the YouTube things. Like, share, subscribe. Leave your comments below. I love to have the conversations about what you thought about WoW and what you thought about this episode. And of course, you always have the full written review. Thank you, Santana, for doing those. So if you want to get another aspect, another opinion on how the show has progressed and how the matches played out and how the personalities are being presented, well, you have that right there. It's right in front of you, available for you to read in full. If you are listening to this in podcast form, wherever you may be catching it, because we are available on greater podcast platforms everywhere, a rating would be nice if you are so obliged. And also, if you can't find it there and you don't know where to find it, and I say it all the time, I don't know why you wouldn't, but for the sake of argument, let's say that you don't, well, you can go to WPNWrestling.com. WPN Wrestling is the center point nexus for all that content, all episodes of the podcast, all videos, well, most videos dating back from now to 2013. It is a constant feed on there. You can see it at any given time. There's more stuff than just the wrestling. And, of course, like I said, if you want to scroll through the archives of the podcast and catch, say, a review from season 1 or the episode that made me start doing this on a regular basis to begin with, episode that reviewed episode 25. You can go all the way back and you can check that out. All those things and more available on WPNWrestling.com. So, in lieu of that, we are now going to get ourselves ready to watch another edition because it's coming up on me soon. And my fingers are crossed as to how this thing is presented. When I get a hint of it going better, it's usually where the rug gets yanked out from underneath me and it starts going worse. But I am not going to say it yet. Again, fingers crossed, looking for the best. Congratulations, Tiki, on your upcoming child, and congratulations to Pink on their nuptials. That's for both ladies. And closing out the show, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.